Welcome back to Just Chattin, and this is the series of videos we do on Thursday and Sunday evenings just for our own entertainment. So, for all you Audie fans, he is around here somewhere. Last time I saw him, he was sleeping in the kitchen on the floor under the table, which is what he does when he needs me to know he's very upset with what's going on. So his upset is coming from the fact that it's been raining for days, and in fact, it's probably going to start raining anytime now. At least that's what the weather report says. And they also say that we should be getting severe thunderstorms. So I can't imagine my little guy will be happy, and I can't imagine that he is going to grace us with his presence. Frankly, I'm responsible, and for all I know, he thinks you are responsible too. So we'll have to see how this works out. We're going to take a quick look at the intro. We'll be right back. So we are still in the middle of Nutmeg's latest publicity blitz. Now, she does this whenever she's done something that has resulted in backlash, in public condemnation. And I think the hospital baby twerk thing, I think that's probably what she's been responding to this time out. However, I expect some of these weird little public appearances may well have been arranged in advance. So, who knows? This is obviously part of a PR blitz, but where it's coming from exactly, I would be reluctant to say. Again, as I said, some of it looks like it was probably scheduled in advance. So, let's talk about the latest one, which is her appearance on Emma Grede's podcast. Now, for those of you who are going to say, "Oh, Sue, you're intentionally butchering that name," no, actually, I looked it up. I was going to go with Grede, because it's spelled Grede. I was going to go with Grede on the theory that it might be quasi-French, I don't know. But I didn't want to go with Grede or Greedy for obvious reasons. But apparently, this is her name. She hasn't changed it, so that leads me to believe she's very comfortable with it. So I did watch the podcast. It was grueling. I have to watch this with earbuds on because my cat hates the sound of her voice. I know he's not alone. I see comments from you people. So many of you hate the sound of her voice that I'm not willing to say, "Oh, well, he's just a stupid cat." No, apparently a large percentage of you are onto something, and my cat just happens to be one of them. So, it was the usual Nutmeg praising herself, and Ms. Grede praising Nutmeg. And this is what all her appearances, whether it is Netflix or on podcasts or on her Spotify or Archie type shows, it's all the same. It's just, let me tell you how wonderful I am, and why don't you tell me how wonderful I am? So, you're not missing anything. Now, we did have one very interesting thing come out of this podcast. At one point, Ms. Grede had, I'm going to call her Emma. I don't mean her any disrespect by calling her Emma, so I'm just going to call her Emma. So Emma did ask Nutmeg if looking back on things, if there were things she wished she had done differently. And Nutmeg responds with, she would have asked people not to lie about her to tell the truth about her. Well, in Emma's defense, let me say, the question is clear. She was looking for a little bit of self-reflection, perhaps self-criticism, a little Monday afternoon quarterbacking. What are the things you wish you had done differently? She clearly does not realize that Nutmeg does not do self-reflection or self-criticism. She does not believe she is doing anything wrong, that she has ever done anything wrong, no matter how disastrous the outcome. But in saying that she wished people would tell the truth about her, she basically gave the entire Megxit community an open invitation to tell the truth about her.
You can't handle the truth!
And what I want to focus on is some of Nutmeg's extremely well-documented lies. Two of them, and these are early ones. Two of them come to mind. Not because we need to have our memories refreshed about the lies, but because I think we need to talk about the fact that her lies are potentially harmful to many people. And by this, I am not referring to the awful things she said about the British royal family, and we know how harmful that was. We know about Prince Philip on his deathbed. We know about the late Queen being very ill at the end of her life. We know what she put them through. We know the kind of anguish and anxiety and stress she has caused for Charles, for Catherine, two people who really don't need stress and anxiety in their lives. I want to talk about the people that we usually don't factor into these equations, the people whose victimization goes very much under the radar. And these are, just the little folks. So let's start with the very famous dishwashing liquid ad and Nutmeg's response to that. She was 11 years old when she started this nonsense of, lying. I'm sorry. I hate to say that about a small child. But yes, this is when the lying really began. Because Nutmeg sat in a class with the teacher, who was probably a very good teacher, because this is a good and rather progressive classroom exercise. The teacher had them watch commercials, television commercials, for their social studies class. And she wanted them to look at the hidden messages. And the class did. They successfully identified sexist messaging in the dishwashing commercials. So Nutmeg wrote a letter. Now, we have the Nickelodeon video, the Nick News video, that documented it at the time, as well as other versions of the event. But for the sake of argument, we're going to stick with the Nick News version, because that is the one that is fully documented. There can be no doubt about any discrepancies between the story Nutmeg tells now and the story Nickelodeon told back in the early 90s. So, we have the social studies class, we have them watching a commercial, we have Nutmeg writing a letter. Now, this may have been written for the class, I've heard that said. It may have been written on her own behalf, but she writes a letter to Procter & Gamble. She never received a response. They never responded. And in the Nickelodeon video, we hear nothing about a response from Procter & Gamble. So we know this is true. And some months later, Nickelodeon says 3 months later, Procter & Gamble changed the commercial. Nutmeg has claimed, either outrightly or by implication, that she was responsible for that change. Well, she wrote her letter. 3 months go by, she gets no response, and the company changes the commercial. A company by the way, that got a lot of negative coverage of that commercial. A lot of people complained. A lot of people wrote letters. We didn't have social media in those days, so it was done a little differently. But yes, people complained. The company changed the commercial. Did they do it because of a letter written by an 11-year-old child who never got a response to her letter? No, of course not. If her letter had been any factor in their decision, they would have at least sent her a response. So, it's a lie. But what's the big deal? Well, here's the big deal. In the Nickelodeon Nick News segment, which only runs 2 minutes, Nutmeg complains that the boys all said, yeah, this is women's work. Women should be doing the dishes. And although she did not specify which boys may have said that, she does basically tar the entire classroom with the same brush. The boys said, well, yeah, why are we supposed to believe this actually happened? Now, I do not believe it happened for one reason. Remember, we have a very forward-thinking teacher who has structured this class exercise of watching television commercials. Does it really make sense that a teacher would have gone to that much trouble for this kind of lesson plan and then what? Not even handled the discussion later? The teacher was clearly trying to show sexist images. Would she then let the boys call the girls' names? It's like, yes, you should be in the kitchen. Or would that have been handled differently? Now, I would suggest, actually having been in education at that time, I would suggest no. Even a merely adequate teacher would have shut down any discussion like that before it got underway. Do I believe that happened? No. I believe in the intervening months. Remember, we have this letter that was allegedly written. We have several months elapsing. Then we have Nutmeg's father calling Linda Ellerby saying, I want you to do a segment. And she does. And all of this time has taken place, and we've had plenty of time for Nutmeg, either alone or with help from either Nickelodeon or her father or whoever, to throw in a little bit of drama. And I do think that's what the boys saying all of their sexist talk about, oh, well, this is women's work. I think that was just a little bit of drama, something just there to spark up that little Nickelodeon segment. So, do I believe it happened? No, I do not. I think that was nothing but dramatic puff for this very short 2-minute segment. And you would think that would be the end of it, but it's not. Because Nutmeg subsequently used this world-changing letter she wrote to get into Immaculate Heart. And that was the rather exclusive secondary school. It was junior high school and senior high school, a 6-year school. The secondary school she got into. And we get that from Tom Bower's book, that Tom Markle had said he was told in the interview that that letter was key in her admission. And again, it was key to her admission at Northwestern. And now we're starting to see what's happening. Children in her 6th grade classroom are accused of sexism. And mind you, we're talking about little boys, that's all. They were not accused by name. They were not accused in any way that could identify them except among their own peers. And yeah, it was thrown out. Anybody in that class, anybody who knew those kids, this was Nickelodeon. They would have seen that, and even if they didn't see it on their own, someone would have told them about it. So we have a bunch of little boys who have been accused of sexism. Not by name, but then again, Nutmeg doesn't throw out named accusations. And then later, we have Nutmeg taking a spot that might have potentially gone to a more deserving student because she wrote in her admissions application that she had changed a soap commercial with her letter. And again, Northwestern, and we see this playing out over and over again. She gets up on a stage that might well have gone to someone else. Someone else might well have taken that platform, but for the fact that she lied to get there. And she is still lying. And this is a pattern. So let's go over to another one. And again, this is an early one. When she was on Suits, the cast members did an ATX TV festival, a panel discussion, basically. They all sat on a stage, and the audience got to ask them questions. And she admitted, and video is linked in the video notes below. So it's there. Take a look at it. I've even put in the time at which this begins so that you don't have to sit through the entire half an hour of this. 1 minute, in which Nutmeg says that she got her union card, her Screen Actors Guild card, by lying. She lied in order to get a job on a television pilot, and they were only hiring union members. They asked her going in, "Are you a member of the union?" Why? Because it was a closed shop, so obviously you have to belong to the union in order to work on the production. So she says yes. So they hire her. So after it is all filmed, everything is all said and done, and the pilot is in the bag, they find out that she was not a member of the union. So what happens? They have to get her union card for her. Why? Because it's a closed shop. It's union only. You work here, you have to be part of the union. If you are not, and that company hired a non-union worker, they can be liable for some pretty severe sanctions. It's usually a question of fines, but beyond the fines, you start to get a bad reputation if you hire non-union people and get caught doing it. So this is serious. Nutmeg laughs it off. That's how she got her union card. She says it was no big deal. All they had to do was send out a piece of paper. No. It was undoubtedly a very big deal. These things are structured to be very big deals. You violate the necessity of union membership. Go to work for them, and they don't go after you. They go after the company that hired you. Or in this case, they probably would have gone after the casting people who brought you in. Interestingly enough, Nutmeg says those casting people will never work with her again. She's never going to do business with them at all, that they won't have anything to do with her. Why? Because she lied to them. And she lied because she wanted the job. It's quite likely she lied because she knew if she could get the job, they would be forced to get the union card for her. And who knows? She was playing the odds, I would say, and for all we know, she had done this many times before. Although I would imagine with no success, or those would have been the times when she got her union card. She does not have the least bit of empathy for these people who had to bail out the situation that she created. No big deal. All they had to do was send a piece of paper in. No, that's not it. Absolutely not. She is completely minimizing it. She is not dealing with the fact that somebody undoubtedly got called out on the carpet for it. And if it was no big deal, why would she be so certain these people will never work with her again, that they don't want to see her ever? The fact of the matter is she doesn't have the least bit of concern, the least bit of sympathy for the people who get caught in the crossfire of her lies and misrepresentation. Does she have sympathy for the little boys that she was bad-mouthing when she was making that Nickelodeon episode? No, not even the tiniest bit of sympathy. Even as an 11-year-old child, because let's face it, 11-year-old children do have empathy for other 11-year-old children. We're at an age at that point where we put ourselves in someone else's position. Did it even occur to her that maybe the boys didn't know any better? Does she even think to say, well, maybe it was ignorance? No. Bad boys said bad things. And as I say, I don't believe they said them. I do not. Because I don't see the teacher who created this learning experience having the clarity of mind to create such a positive experience and then suddenly drop the ball and let the conversation following get so out of hand. No, don't buy that. Does she care? No. Does she care that this lie, because quite frankly, by the time she starts telling people at the United Nations that her letter changed the soap company, she was a grown adult and had to know it wasn't so. So even if she was stretching the truth as a little girl, not as an adult she was lying. She's still doing it. To this day, she is still quoting that story. She changed the world with her letter. Sorry, not true. And frankly, I don't see how anybody could possibly believe it is true. It's such an absurd story. Same thing with tricking people into having to go out and get her union card for her, because they would have had to have reshot all those scenes with another actress if they didn't. It was the path of least resistance, which she undoubtedly knew. Nevertheless, it was not the minor little let's just, shoot out a letter and it's all done, everything's copacetic. No, not the least bit of sympathy or compassion for what she put them through. The fact is, and like I say, there's a link to this video, she is laughing about it. So I would have to say that, am I upset with her for lying? Well, sure, I'd rather she didn't lie. I am more upset with the fact that she doesn't care who she hurts with these lies. And it's everybody from little kids in her 6th grade classroom right up to the royal family. She doesn't care. There is not a scratch of empathy within her for anyone else who is caught in the crossfire. She makes up a story because it suits her purpose. When that story falls apart, does she care who has to pick up the pieces? No, she does not. Let the chips fall where they may. And I have to say, that's the part I don't like. Now, I chose 2 examples because they are ridiculously well documented. Her words, filmed. And we know that she lied. We know this. So yeah, there's no question that the truth is not what she wants to hear. She lies, and she wants us to repeat her lies and present it as the truth. So yeah, I'm going to stick with this challenge, by the way, and I'm going to continue to tell the truth about her, no matter how ugly it gets. And I'm sure many of you know there are a lot of stories I have refused to discuss because I felt maybe they couldn't be well documented, maybe you don't throw out a poorly documented story if it's not going to do anybody any good. Oh yeah, well, I'm starting to rethink that. So thank you, Nutmeg. I will take you at your challenge, and I will tell the truth about you. I hope the rest of the community does the same. All right, 2 isolated little incidences we have. Proof in the video notes. Watch the film, see it for yourself. Listen to her saying, yeah, I lied to get my union card. Yeah, it was no big deal. All right, we are going to take a look at a slideshow on the way out. I hope to see you all next time. And in the meanwhile, have a terrific day.